It started on a chilly Monday morning. I stood outside the towering glass building that bore the company name I'd worked so hard to build. Today, though, I wasn't walking in as the CEO. Instead, I was dressed in plain work clothes, my usual polished suit replaced by an unassuming sweater and slacks. I was about to go undercover. The board of directors and I had agreed that something felt off within the company. Productivity was dipping, complaints from employees were rising, and the warmth that used to define our workplace seemed to have faded. We needed answers. So I decided to see it all for myself, by joining as a temp employee. The plan was simple. I'd work for a few weeks under a false identity, observing how people behaved when they didn't know I was the CEO. With a fake resume and a carefully crafted backstory, I joined as Chris Edwards, a new hire in the logistics department. Walking through the doors, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Would anyone recognize me? I doubted it. My role kept me in meetings and strategy sessions, far removed from the day-to-day grind. As I headed to the HR desk, I noticed a few employees giving me curious glances, but no one seemed to suspect anything. Chris Edwards? The HR assistant called out, her voice friendly but distracted. I stepped forward, and she handed me a badge with my new name. "Welcome to the team," she said, not even looking up. I was ready to see my company from the inside, but I wasn't ready for what I'd find. The logistics department was tucked away in the back corner of the building, a far cry from the sleek executive suite I was used to. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, and the air felt a little stale. Stacks of papers, binders, and unwashed coffee mugs cluttered most of the desks. "Hey, you must be Chris." A young woman with short brown hair greeted me with a smile as I walked in. "I'm Mia, let me show you the ropes." She was friendly but looked exhausted, like she'd been running on fumes for days. Mia led me to a small desk squeezed between filing cabinets. "This will be your station," she said. "Don't expect much. It's survival mode around here." I chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "Survival mode? Sounds intense." She gave a dry laugh. "Oh, you'll see." I spent the rest of the day learning the basics. Mia was patient, but I noticed how hurried everyone else seemed. People barely spoke to each other unless it was work-related. Some seemed irritable, while others kept their heads down, avoiding eye contact. Then there was Jack, the department supervisor. He stormed through the room like a hurricane, barking orders and throwing out criticisms. "That's not good enough." He snapped at a younger employee who was struggling with a report. "If you can't get it right, maybe you shouldn't be here." I felt a knot form in my stomach. Was this how my employees were being treated? I wanted to step in, but I couldn't blow my cover. Instead, I stayed quiet, silently observing. When Jack reached my desk, he didn't even acknowledge me. "Make sure the inventory reports are done by 5, he said flatly before walking off. Mia leaned over. "Don't let him get to you," she whispered. "He's always like that. We just deal with it." I nodded, but inside, I was fuming. This wasn't the company culture I had envisioned when I founded this place. I couldn't help but wonder how many good employees we'd lost because of managers like Jack. As the day ended, I headed home feeling a mix of frustration and determination. There was a lot more to uncover, and I knew this was only the beginning. By the second week, I had settled into the routine. The work itself wasn't difficult, but the atmosphere weighed heavily on me. Jack's outbursts were relentless, and I noticed how much they affected the team. People flinched when he entered the room, and productivity seemed driven more by fear than motivation. One afternoon, Mia and I were working on a project together. She was guiding me through a new system when Jack appeared behind us. "Mia, why isn't this finished yet?" he demanded, his tone sharp. She glanced at him nervously. "I'm just walking Chris through it. We'll be done shortly." Jack crossed his arms. "Walking him through it? We don't have time for hand-holding. If he can't figure it out, that's his problem." I clenched my fists under the desk. I wanted to say something, but I bit my tongue. Mia, however, wasn't so lucky. "Jack, I'm just—" "Enough excuses," he snapped, cutting her off. "If you spent half as much time working as you do making excuses, maybe we'd actually hit our deadlines." The words stung, and I saw Mia's eyes glisten with tears she was trying hard to hold back. "I'll get it done," she said quietly, turning back to her computer. Jack walked away, muttering something under his breath. I watched as Mia wiped her eyes, her hands trembling. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. She forced a smile. It's fine. He's just stressed. We all are. It wasn't fine. None of this was fine. Later that day, I overheard two other employees talking in the break room. Did you hear about Lily? One of them said. She quit last week, said she couldn't take Jack's crap anymore. I don't blame her, the other replied. I'm thinking about leaving too. It's not worth it. Hearing that broke my heart. These were talented, hard-working people, and they were being driven out because of one toxic manager. That evening, as I reviewed my notes, I made a decision. It wasn't enough to observe anymore. I had to act. But how? If I revealed my identity too soon, I might lose the chance to see the full picture. The answer came sooner than I expected. It was a typical team meeting, one of those where you could feel the tension in the room even before anyone spoke. Jack stood at the head of the conference table, clipboard clutched tightly in one hand, like it was some kind of weapon. He had that usual scowl on his face, the one that told us all this wasn't going to be a pleasant discussion. All right, listen up, he began, his voice sharp and commanding. Deadlines are slipping, numbers are down, and frankly, some of you are barely pulling your weight. His gaze swept the room, daring anyone to challenge him. I sat quietly near the middle of the table, observing the scene. The atmosphere was suffocating, with most people either staring at their notes or avoiding eye contact altogether. It was clear Jack thrived on this dynamic, mistaking fear for respect. But to me, this wasn't leadership. It was something far worse, intimidation dressed up as authority. Chris! Jack's voice suddenly boomed, snapping me out of my thoughts. I looked up, meeting his glare. Yes? I don't know what you've been doing all week, he said, jabbing a finger in my direction, but your numbers are way off. If you can't handle basic tasks, maybe this isn't the job for you. The room went dead silent. All eyes turned to me, and I could feel the collective unease radiating from my coworkers. Some looked like they wanted to speak up but didn't dare. Others just stared at their notes, pretending this wasn't happening. Anger surged in my chest. This wasn't just about me. It was about everyone who had been belittled and humiliated by Jack. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Jack, I began, standing up slowly. With all due respect, I've done exactly what was asked of me. If there's an issue, maybe you should take a closer look at your instructions. The reaction was immediate. A few people gasped softly, and Mia's eyes widened as though she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. No one had ever spoken to Jack like that before. Jack's face darkened, his jaw tightening. Excuse me, he said, his voice dropping to a low, menacing tone. You heard me. I replied evenly, refusing to back down. And while we're on the subject, your management style isn't exactly motivating. Maybe if you spent more time supporting your team and less time tearing them down, we'd see better results. The room was so silent, you could have heard a pin drop. For a moment, Jack just stared at me, his face turning an alarming shade of red. Then, with a loud slam, he brought his clipboard down onto the table. That's it, he bellowed, pointing at me. You're done? Pack your things and get out. I smiled faintly, keeping my voice calm. You're firing me? You're damn right I am, he snapped, practically spitting the words. For a moment, I hesitated. This wasn't how I'd planned to reveal myself, but looking around the room, I saw the mix of fear and hope in my coworkers' eyes. They needed to know someone had their back. Reaching into my bag, I pulled out my real employee badge and set it on the table. The name, Christopher Evans, CEO, gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. The silence that followed was deafening. Jack's eyes flicked from the badge to my face, his expression shifting from anger to pure shock. Yes, Jack, I said, my voice steady and unyielding. You're firing the CEO. Jack's reaction was almost comical, his mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. His eyes darted to the badge I had placed on the table, the words Christopher Evans, CEO, practically burning into his retinas. You're joking, he finally managed to stammer, his voice shaky. This is some kind of prank, right? I straightened, folding my arms across my chest. It's no joke, Jack. I've been working undercover to see how things really run in this company, and I've seen enough to know we have a serious problem. The room was eerily silent, save for the faint hum of the air conditioner. My coworkers sat frozen in their chairs, their eyes darting between Jack and me. Mia looked like she couldn't decide whether to burst into laughter or tears, while others wore expressions of disbelief. Jack's bravado began to crumble as the reality of the situation sank in. "I had no idea," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "If I had known—" "That's exactly the problem, Jack," I interrupted, keeping my tone measured but firm. "You didn't know who I was, but that shouldn't matter. It's not about titles or positions. Everyone in this room deserves respect, whether they're the CEO or an intern, and you've failed them." My words hit like a hammer. Jack's shoulders slumped and his face paled. For once he was speechless. I took a deep breath and turned to the rest of the team. My voice softened as I addressed them. "I want to apologize to all of you. This isn't the company I envisioned when I started it. You've been working hard under conditions that no one should have to endure. You deserve better. Better leadership, better support, and a better work environment. Starting today, things are going to change." A ripple of emotion passed through the room. Mia's eyes glistened with tears, and a few others nodded subtly. The atmosphere, once heavy with fear, began to shift. I turned back to Jack. "Effective immediately, you're relieved of your duties," I said firmly. "You'll be escorted out by security. HR will be in touch to finalize your departure." For a moment, Jack just stood there, as if hoping I might change my mind. When he realized I wouldn't, he nodded stiffly, his face a mix of anger and humiliation. Without another word, he grabbed his clipboard and stormed out of the room, avoiding everyone's gaze. Once the door closed behind him, the tension in the room broke like a dam. Some people exchanged stunned glances, while others visibly relaxed, their shoulders finally releasing the tension they had been holding. I looked at them with sincerity. "This isn't just about removing one bad manager. I need your help to rebuild the culture here. I can't do it alone. I want your honest feedback, what's working, what isn't, and what you need from leadership, and I promise I'll listen." Mia was the first to speak. Her voice was soft but carried the weight of her emotions. "Thank you," she said, her words trembling with sincerity. "We've all been hoping for change. It means so much that you're here, that you care." Her words touched something deep within me. I nodded. "You deserve it," I replied, "and this is just the beginning. Together, we'll make things better." As the meeting wrapped up, I could sense a glimmer of hope among the team. It wouldn't be easy to rebuild trust and create the kind of workplace I had always envisioned. But that day marked the start of a new chapter. And as for Jack, his exit wasn't just a lesson for him. It was a reminder to me, too. Leadership isn't about power or control. It's about respect, empathy, and lifting others up. That's the kind of leader I vowed to be. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button to let us know. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to drop a comment below. Your feedback means the world to us. And if you're not already part of our community, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Finally, share this video with your friends and family. Let's spread the message together. Your support keeps us going, and we can't wait to share more amazing stories with you. Thank you.